Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Spheres of Spirit with Nancy Myers, aka the Lady of the Light. Nancy will discuss the everyday magic and wisdom of spirit which surrounds each of us, waiting to be discovered. She will share some of her remarkable orb photos, proving that our angels, guides, loved ones in spirit, and even pets surround us and guide us in our physical world. During this episode, Nancy will discuss one of the many spheres or aspects of spirit available to us based on her orb photography. She will also share a special channeled message from her guide, Leonini, and do an oracle card reading to help guide you along your personal spiritual adventure. And now, here is your host, orb photographer, author, medium, and speaker, Nancy Myers.
Hi, I am Nancy Myers, and I want to thank you so much for tuning into the show today. So today, my son wanted me to talk about intuition and clairs. What are the clairs? Well, we're going to get into that. But as always, I tell you that all this information that I share with you is from my own experience, what I've learned, what I've seen, what I've been given. And if it doesn't fit, then leave it. But if you get some benefit out of it, terrific. So let's talk about the clairs, or our gifts, as some say. So does everybody have them? We do. We're going to talk about that. Some say they've had it since birth. Some say, me, they've discovered it later in life. But we all are blessed with gifts, if you will, or talents or abilities, whatever it is you want to talk, name it. So if we can bring up the first slide, Chris. And this is a quote by Mary Dunbar. And Mary Dunbar was a British artist. She was a war artist in World War II, an illustrator and a painter. I always like to tell you who I'm quoting because I think it adds validity and a different level to the quote. So Mary Dunbar said, "It is our privilege and our adventure to discover our own special light." And I chose this. This is not a recent orb, but it's one of my favorite because it does have many facets, many lights within it. And that's what we are. It's just like me. My specialty is orb photography. Not everybody does what I do or captures what I capture, but that's my gift. So also I want to say at the beginning of this quote, I only put part of the quote, but at the beginning of this quote, she said, "We are each gifted in a unique and important way." And I've told you this story before. I had a friend who had a near-death experience. And when she passed and she was on the other side, she walked into this room and there were shelves upon shelves as far as she could see. It went off to infinity. And on the shelves were individually wrapped gift boxes, and every single one was different. And her guide told her, "Those are your individual gifts that, come down with the soul, and everyone is different." So just because you might have one gift, um, you might not. It's okay. So let's talk about what clairs are. And what do I mean by clair? Well, you've probably heard the term clairvoyant, clairaudient, um, clairsentient. That's a term, the clairs. It came about maybe in the 17th century, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So when I started my mediumship studying, and I'm still studying, it's an ongoing process. But the teacher said, there are 5 or 6 main clairs. Now, some of you, I'm going to talk about those. These, in my mind, are the pure or the original. Some people add, some people describe other things, and that's okay. But I want to stay with kind of the original. So, the following definitions of clair, which is derived from a French word meaning clear. So the first one we're going to talk about is clairvoyance. So what does that mean? It means clear seeing. So clairvoyance is when someone sees through their mind's eye, or known as the third eye, right? And it's the chakra between our eyebrows. One could see flashes, images. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I see a movie running in my head." Other people say, "Oh, there's like a ticker tape going across and I can read the ticker tape." We can't see it, but they can. And some say it's like a still picture or a photograph. Or some say they can see what's been happening in the past, present, or future. So, mediums can display the gifts of clairvoyance. Um, that's probably one of the most common. I always wanted to be clairvoyant. I thought that was the cool thing because I have friends who literally can see with their physical eyes, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, clairvoyance is what they call the gift of spiritual sight. And there are 2 methods of clairvoyance, or 2 types. There's subjective clairvoyance, where the person perceives the images again in their mind, which is the third eye. And most use this type of clairvoyance. Most mediums see in their mind, not in their physical eyes. And this ability, clairvoyance, everybody has. But if you're not using it, does that mean you can never use it? No. We all come in with these gifts. Maybe, you talk to mediums sometimes and they go, "Oh, I've been a medium since I was born. I saw spirit, I heard things or whatever." Me, I didn't think I had anything, but I was educated to the fact that we all possess these clairs, and then I was taught how to tap into them. And it's never too late. I didn't do it until my 50s. So, but there is a second type of clairvoyance, which is objective. So, subjective means, again, you're visualizing it in your mind. Um, it's kind of like, "Oh, you have to trust me. This is what I'm seeing." The second type is objective, and this is when you actually then use your physical eyes and you see something with your physical eyes. It's kind of stepped out of your mind, right? How many times have we heard mediums or even people we know had a loved one pass, and they say they wake up in the middle of the night and see grandma standing at the end of their bed? That's clairvoyance, and that is objective clairvoyance. So, mediums with clairvoyant abilities receive visual messages. They can be symbols, images from spirit. The images may be symbolic or literal, and it's up to the medium to interpret them and relay their meaning to the client. When I first started my mediumship awareness, um, one of the things the teacher told us is spirit will start showing you things to build your spiritual library or your spiritual vocabulary. So let's say I'm shown red roses and I'm talking to a client. Well, to me, red roses mean, "Oh, you used to buy your mom red roses." It can be literal. Or, "Oh, um, your mom is sending you love through red roses." It's a symbol of love. So you have to learn what your vocabulary consists of, and there could be multiple definitions to one image. That was kind of fun for me to build up And it's an ongoing process. They continue to add to my vocabulary, which I just love. And the way that you learn is sometimes I'll have a sitter in front of me and I'll say, "Oh, um, I see tapioca pudding," you know, and um, the sitter will say either, "Oh, that's what my grandma used to make with me all the time," or the sitter may say, "Oh, that reminds me of the time that I would spend with my grandma." So it's kind of like a symbol, if you will. So it's fun, and you don't know which it is. So as a medium, you have to say, okay, this makes no sense to me, but I'm seeing tapioca pudding, and of course, there's an instant connection with the client. They know. So as a medium, I have to trust what spirit is showing me. And that takes some courage sometimes. Sometimes they show me some funny stuff. So another Claire is called Clairaudience. And clairaudience means clear hearing, right? So this means that someone has the ability to hear things physically without the use of their ears. Basically, it's kind of like telepathic information coming into one's mind. But sometimes people will hear this again objectively. They hear it outside their mind, outside of a thought. People ask me sometimes, "What is telepathy? How would you describe or when it comes in your mind's eye?" And I'll tell them, I'll say, "If I tell you, picture your childhood room as you were growing up. Okay, do you have that? You have that image in your mind? That's kind of how spirit works. They'll put an image. I say it's a thought so loud I can hear it. But I do hear words that way. They're impressed upon my mind. But I do have a story about one time I heard outside. I don't normally hear things with my ears. It's usually subjectively. But there's a contrasting part of the gift of this clairaudience that allows you to hear clearly with your own physical ears. And believe me, if they say when it happens to you, you will just go, "Holy crap, I heard that." And especially when other people hear it too. And that's what my story is going to be. A lot of mediums develop this ability to a very high degree so that they can hear spirit physically. Now, I have mediums tell me when they first started, they saw outside of their body with their physical eyes the spirits. They heard with their physical ears the spirits talking. But as they got better and better and more developed, spirit then went to subjective. So they used their mind and their inner abilities. And they say, the mediums that I talk to, that's because it's more efficient. So my story is it was, I think, the second or third Christmas that we were celebrating. Um, I think it was the second Christmas since my son Robbie's passing. And, the holidays are never the same. Once you lose a loved one, the tradition's broken, right? And so you start new traditions or whatever. And it can be a reminder of, oh, they're not here. So this particular Christmas, we we weren't in a good place. It's like, oh, why do we celebrate Christmas? And so I was sitting there and I go, I wish I could hear from Robbie. I wish I could hear from him. And we were sitting at the breakfast table, and all of a sudden, both my husband and I hear a whistle. And it was so loud. And we're in the house. We both jumped up. We looked at each other. We go, "Did you hear that?" "Yeah, I heard that." And we got up and went outside to see if somebody was standing at our front door or by our window, trying to get our attention, but nobody was there. And it made a huge impression on us. A little while later, I got a reading from Hollister Rand, who's been on my show. And during the reading, and she didn't know this, she goes, "Robbie says you heard a whistle." on Christmas." And I said, "I did." She said, "That was him. He worked really hard to you said you wanted to hear from him, and he worked really hard to manifest that whistle in the physical." So I just thought that was an amazing story. So again, I don't hear with my physical ears. I get more telepathic stuff. But that was fun. And it was fun because excuse me, I had a witness. My husband heard it too. So that just shows the ability of spirit. So um, audio messages, clairaudience, can be signals, right, from spirit. They can take the form of words, phrases, or even full conversations. They're usually only heard in the medium's mind or at a frequency that only the medium can hear, which I found that fascinating when they said only at a frequency, because I'm wondering if we think we're hearing it in our mind, we're not using our physical ears, but maybe it's a little of both sometimes. So clairaudience gives the medium the ability to know exactly what to say without conscious thought. So words, like for me, sometimes I'll be doing a reading and I'm talking. I've got somebody's father, and all of a sudden I start using a phrase or a word that I wouldn't use. I would never use that. And I go, and I have to stop myself and I go, "I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from." And invariably, my sitter will say, "No, that's perfect. He would use that phrase all the time," or "That's a word he used all the time," or even "That's how he would say that phrase." So I'm stepping aside from my conscious mind and I'm letting spirit kind of take over. So, and that again is great validation for the sitter that I am indeed connected to their loved ones because they use words and phrases like I said, I don't use. Um, it's also clairaudience. Now, you all know that I channel my guide, Leonini, and I have an amazing message for her that I got for today. And so, what helps me is clairaudience. I can kind of relax, go into meditation, and then allow the words to come and enter my head into my head, and then I speak them. So it's like again, you bypass that conscious mind. Um, I wanted to tell you. Okay, so that's clairaudience. So there's another one. It's called Clairsentience, which is clear feeling. Sentience is sentient. Sentience definition is conscious of our um, of conscious of or responsive to the sensations of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, or smelling. So clairsentience kind of encompasses a lot of things, um, but clairsentience is when someone can feel the information within him or herself. It includes an individual feeling the physical and emotional pain, even of the land or of something that happened. Or if you're standing in front of somebody, you can tell if they're hurting. Or a lot of times when I bring in someone from spirit, and I say, "Can you tell me how you passed?" And you've probably seen this. And the medium will go, "Oh, I have to cough, or I have a pain in my heart, or my head hurts." So that's clairsentient, that the spirit is impressing upon you these feelings, and the medium is able to pick up on that. Um, it includes the individual feeling, the physical, emotional. It can be jealousy, insecurity, fears, displeasure in others. Sometimes when I'm reading and I bring in a loved one, I'll say, "He makes me feel like um, he was not happy." At the end of his life. How do I know that? I don't know. I just feel a sadness, right? Now, I'm also a Reiki master, and clairsentience comes into play when I do Reiki. So, in fact, just last weekend, I went to a gentleman house, and he had just had 2 knee replacements done at the same time. And so I said, "Okay, I'll come over and do Reiki and help you, uh, through the healing process." Sometimes Reiki can speed it up. So anyway, but I did a complete Reiki treatment on him, and I get down to his feet, and his left foot was fine, and then I touched the sole of his right foot, and I went, ooh, because my foot started hurting, and it was a pain I'd had before, and it was a plantar fasciitis. It's when that tendon in the arch of your foot just, fires up, and it's horrible. And so I said to him, "Oh," I go, "You have plantar fasciitis right now." And he goes, "How did you know that?" And I said, "'Cause I can feel it." And, so what do? I just send extra energy and stay on that spot a little bit longer. But it's kind of fascinating. So it's, again, clairsentience is the ability to feel spirit or feel conditions of energy that surround you. You're picking up on the energy, which is felt within your body on a physical level. This can be an unconscious feeling or a direct result of spirit allowing you to feel conditions prior to their passing from the earth plane, like I discussed. One time I had somebody showed me a car accident, and then my head, oh, it hurt so bad. And sure enough, this soul had been ejected through the windshield and passed. But we can also feel uh, conditions or energy of those we meet on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be someone in spirit, right? Like I just said, I picked up on this gentleman's foot. So a medium or psychic can feel the sickness condition of someone. It tells the medium what the person is going through at the time, and also maybe what chakras are blocked. So, I can feel that. I'll do a body scan and I can feel, ooh, it's hot here, it's cold here. The feeling can come upon the medium by way of a headache that comes and goes, a feeling of dread or sickness. Um, Usually, it comes in and I can feel it, whether I'm doing a reading or Reiki, and I'll say, "Oh, okay, I got it. Thank you. Please release it." I don't want to walk around with that other person's pain. And maybe you feel that, right? Maybe sometimes you walk into a room or the energy's off, or you're around somebody who's really sick or really mean, but okay, feel it and then say, "Thank you, spirit. Please release that from me." And because, like I said, you don't want to take that on. That empaths have to be really careful. They are highly sensitive, clairsentient. And what's the important thing of being a clairsentient is knowing how to clear yourself. And so what they say is, make a conscious effort. So what I do is I'll shake my hands after Reiki and I'll say, okay, I'm releasing the energy down to Mother Earth to be transmuted into love, or whatever your procedure is. But if you're feeling things when when you're near people or in places, you don't want that to go home with you or to stay with you. So make sure you have your own practice of clearing. One of the things that, one of the greatest gifts I think that some mediums have is the gift of healing. There's not a lot of mediums that can do instantaneous healings, but there are a few. But they truly dedicate themselves. But there are mediums who are medical intuitives, and they can tell by being in your presence or feeling or whatever um, what it is you're going through. I'm not a medical intuitive. I can't stand in front of somebody and say, "Oh, you have a stomach ache," or "Oh, your knee's hurting," unless I'm doing Reiki. But there are medical intuitives who can scan. I think they have a really highly developed clairsentient ability. And uh, I thank them because it's a lot to take on. It really is. Um, when we do mediumship work as mediums, we were told, do not take on the emotion. Do not take on the pain. Once you're aware of it, once the spirit has given you that information, then make the conscious effort. Okay, thank you. I release that. But it's important for the reading, right? So you need to be aware of it. So, one of the other things that I didn't know, so we'll set clairsentience aside for right now, but I think clairsentience is a really important one um, to have. It kind of touches on all of them, all the other clairs. So one of the funny ones that I learned about early on that I didn't know existed was one called Clairgustance. And I went, what is that? And the medium said, well, I can taste what the spirit is describing. Let's say grandma comes in with her favorite lemon meringue pie, and the spirit goes, or the medium says, oh, I'm tasting lemon meringue pie. There's no lemon meringue pie in the room, but the spirit is able to imprint that onto the medium's taste buds or mind, or maybe a combination. So I have had that happen a few times where, and it's always food, where the medium will come in or the spirit will come in and make me taste something, especially if it was one of my favorite foods. I bet if I asked you about, okay, what's our favorite food? Can you taste that in your mouth right now? You can because you have that memory. So that's a clair called clairgustance. So, and I have some stories that I'll share with you. But right now, I think, oh, God, that went by so fast, 30 minutes. So let's take a little break, and I'll finish the other clairs, and then I want to get into intuition. So we'll be right back.
Om Times TV. The story told in Entering the Light Fantastic, Discovering Life After Life Through Orbs, is about Nancy Meyers' spiritual and emotional rising from the devastating ashes of loss caused by the sudden and unexpected passing of her son Robbie. Just like the legend of the reborn phoenix, Nancy's life purpose and focus was transformed. With the help from her son in spirit, Nancy found herself providing proof through orbs that our souls do not die with our bodies. In her second book, Encircled by the Light Fantastic, A Deeper Journey into the Light with Orbs, Nancy continues chronicling her path of gaining spiritual knowledge and expanding acceptance of what is possible, while traveling to many sacred and ancient sites around the world. She shares these experiences with you along with her photographs of remarkable spirit encounters. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo. Gracias. Thank you. What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Hi, and we're back. Okay, I wanted to tell you, I always like to look up the definition of the words whatever I'm talking about. And back to clairvoyance for a second. When I looked up clairvoyance, the standard definition was being able to see into and predicting the future. I went, no, that's not what clairvoyance is. But talk about that old Hollywood type. Oh, I'm going to go. Oh, I see. It took you right back to the stereotypical fortune teller, right? Staring into the crystal ball with the turban on her hair, and I went, wow, we have to break through that. So that's not what clairvoyance is, as hopefully I explained earlier. One of the other clairs that I think is really important, or kind of not talked about or understood. It's called claircognizance, and it means clear knowing. Now, I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast today at some point said to somebody, "Oh, that's going to happen," or "That's not the way we do that," or "We need to turn left even though our GPS is telling us to turn right." Where did that come from? That's claircognizance. That's this knowing. Someone has information or knowledge of something that he or she does not actually know. Thoughts come out of nowhere, pop into one's mind, and give information about something that might happen in the future or a situation that you're doing in the middle of right now, right? A right and a wrong. Sometimes I'll talk to my husband and I'll tell him something and he'll go, "How did you know that?" And I go, "I don't know. I don't know where that came from." And I'm sure you've experienced that too. Well, this gift of claircognizance, it's a higher awareness, even though you may not realize you're doing it. It may go unnoticed for a long time and you will have no conscious knowledge of where or how you have perceived this information. This is the highest form of knowing. It is divine in its very nature and has been a part of spirituality for centuries. Some say this is being taken over when we have claircognizance by the Holy Spirit. It is the bypassing of the mind to go directly to the super consciousness or the divine source itself. So some of us can be aware of it. Some of it happens to us spontaneously. So what does that tell me? And maybe what should it tell you? We all have that gift. And the more we're aware of it, the more we can cultivate it, the more we can grow it, the more we can tap into it and utilize it, right? So claircognizance is really, I think of all the clairs, gets us to our higher self, gets us to those answers that we seek. So clairaudience, another funny one that I didn't know existed, clear smelling. And again, I bet some of you have had experiences where you're in a room and let's say all of a sudden, mom's favorite perfume wafts through the air. Now, mom just passed. Her perfume is not in the room, but you smell it. It's spirit's way of saying, "Hey, do you recognize me through this scent?" So, or you smell cigarette smoke, or you smell alcohol, or you smell a certain flower. I just love this one, and it's neither of these things are actually present, but yet it's affecting your physical senses. So this one's a little different. So, who has the clairs, and are they all equal? When I first started mediumship, I wanted to be clairvoyant so bad. I said, it would be so easy if I could just see it with my eyes, right? It kind of takes all the guesswork out of it. But it wasn't to be. I had a reading with Rebecca Rosen, who's been on my show, And I asked her the question. I go, can you identify my strong clair? Because we all have a dominant or a couple dominant clairs. And she thought about it and she goes, oh, you're clairsentient. I was so disappointed. I thought, I don't want to be clairsentient. I want to be clairaudient or clairvoyant. And I didn't understand the significance of that until further down in my mediumship development. And like I said, I can touch someone, I can feel someone when I'm communicating with spirit, they're able to make me feel what they went through, what they're going through, maybe what the sitter was going through. And then what I love is being clairsentient. I know when spirit is around because I can feel their vibration. So it was actually a huge blessing for me to be clairsentient. So what do I do with the other clairs, and do I have them? Yes, we all have them. But again, they're not dominant. Now, when I was again in class, or even now, and I'm always in class, I continually learn. But we'll do exercises, and the teacher will say, "Okay, we want you to connect to a spirit, but you can only use one rarely that we use your sense of smell." What? Wait, I can't use my clairsentience. I can't use my clairaudience. I have to rely on smell. And so we would do these exercises where we have to identify the spirit just through a smell. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it works, it's incredible. But what that teaches you is, okay, yes, you can tap into that. So let's say I'm doing a reading and the sitter doesn't feel like I'm really connected to their loved ones. What do I do, or what would you do? Okay, let's go to another clair. Let me feel this. Let me see this. Let me hear this spirit, smell this spirit in a different way. And some spirits come in and tap into different clairs. I find that fascinating too. Just like we have strong um, talents, so do they, or they're matching us. But so that's pretty fascinating. But again, I wasn't born doing this. I didn't develop these clairs or become really aware of them until my mid 50s. So again, it's never too late. We all have these. We all have these abilities. So I want to talk about, I want to switch now. And that's everything about the clairs. Those are, I think, the 6 clairs that I think are the main clairs. And like I said, you'll always find other stuff. But can we get the next slide up, Chris? Because now I want to switch to this subject. And of course, this is a very recent orb, by the way, and I call it the eye of God. It kind of looks like an eyeball there. The quote, of course, is by one of my heroes, Albert Einstein, and the only real valuable thing is intuition. Again, Albert Einstein was a lot more spiritual and connected than a lot of people think. But this is pretty profound when you think about this quote. The only real valuable thing is intuition. Thank you, Chris. What is intuition? Intuition is when the conscious mind and the unconscious mind work together. So where did this word come from? Intuition. The first use of the word intuition was found in a text at the end of the 15th century. And the meaning up until the 17th century said mentally looking at it, the act of regarding, examining, or inspecting a view or consideration, all of which are now obsolete meanings. Because since the 17th century, there was a scholastic philosopher or philosophers started to use the word intuition in what we now know as its modern meaning, which is the spiritual, hold on one second, perception or immediate knowledge ascribed to angelic and spiritual beings, with whom vision and knowledge are identical. The word intuition comes from the Latin root tuit, which means to teach, and the prefix in means not. So intuition is knowing something not from any teaching, but or instruction. It comes without reasoning, logic, or evidence. It comes from a higher source. Albert Einstein said in another quote, "I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I am right. I do not know that I am right." So in my mind, intuition is kind of an umbrella term. You'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, are you an intuitive?" Well, what's an intuitive? It can mean many things. Maybe you're a medium, maybe you're an empath, maybe you're a clairvoyant, maybe you're a clairaudient. So the intuition touches on all those abilities. All those abilities that I just talked about, the clairs, kind of fall under the umbrella of being an intuitive. So Albert Einstein is saying, okay, let me say that again. I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I'm right. I do not know that I'm right. So feel, he feels it. It's clairsentient. It's that knowing, it's claircognizance. So in this sentence, he kind of combined three things, right? So where does this knowing come from? Who's giving us this information? If a person is particularly tuned into his or her intuition, we may say she is psychic or he is psychic. The word psychic comes from the Greek word psyche, which means the soul. So, looking at the meanings of these two words, intuition and psychic, we can infer that the knowing comes from our soul. Objective means verifiable information. Oh, excuse me. Never mind. So it means that this information, it's just like when I channel my higher self, which is my soul, and I get these messages from Leonini, it's coming from my soul. Or when we meditate, it comes from our soul. So having an ability to perceive beyond normal sensory contact is what intuition is. And it's what all those clairs are, right? Beyond normal sensory contact. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein again. So what's he saying right there? He's saying we've taken the importance of being an intuitive and put it down or hidden it away. When if you've been following your spiritual path or you've been reading a lot of spiritual books, what you'll hear over and over and over again is we've separated ourselves from source. We've separated ourselves. We've separated ourselves because we explain away, our ego mind explains away that intuition. How many times have you had a feeling in your stomach or whatever, and it was so opposite of what you thought what it should be, so you didn't pay attention to it. You went ahead with what your logical mind was telling you, and it was wrong. Your gut was right, right? So we let that ego mind take over, and we stopped listening or trusting to our intuition, which created the separation, which is why we're spiritually disconnected. The ego's we don't need to kill the ego, but we need to work in harmony, I believe, with our intuition, with our spiritual gifts. Here is a quote. It says, "Intuition is a spiritual faculty and does not explain, but simply points the way." Trust that gut feeling. Florence Scovel Shinn. She was an artist, an author, and a spiritual teacher in the 19th and early 20th century. I used a lot of these artists and scientists and authors, writers, because they are inspired in spirit, inspired, right? Where does that come from? They are tapping in. They've allowed themselves to tap in and to trust what they're getting. Albert Einstein, he freely admitted sometimes he would just meditate and it would be downloaded. That's kind of, you hear people, oh, I got downloaded with information. That's kind of what you're doing. You're tapping into that. Jonas Salk. We all know who Jonas Salk. He invented or discovered the polio vaccine, right? Here's another person. Was he meant to discover that polio vaccine? Was it time? Perhaps. But he said intuition will tell the thinking mind where to look next. This one gives me the goosebumps because as you're going through, let's say, trial and error, as Jonas Salk would have had to have done, trying to develop the polio vaccine, where he'd look at it and go, you know what, I'm going to try this. Well, where did that come from? Maybe inspiration. Rumi, who is a 13th century poet, scholar, and mystic, and I love Rumi quotes. They're amazing. Said, there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. So how do you listen? You meditate. My last podcast was on meditation. So, but you have to clear, you have to make way, you have to open the channel. You have to quiet the ego down for a little while. So my last one is from Clarissa Pincola Estes, and she was an American writer. And she said, that is what the intuition is for. It is the direct messenger of the soul. Again, we're talking about the soul. People tell me, I have no way of proving this, but our main soul stays on the other side, and we are just a portion of our main soul. So it would make sense for our main soul to be in contact, in communication with us, helping to guide us, I think. So, contrary to popular belief, mediums do not have all the answers. Information from those in spirit is provided on a need-to-know basis, even with all those tools, even with all that intuition. There are times when those in spirit do not provide a direct answer because we're not supposed to have an answer. We're supposed to go through the learning process. So, if you're ever getting a reading or somebody says, oh, I can tell you to do A, B, C, and D, be careful, okay? You'll know it'll sit right with you or it won't sit right with you. But what you don't want is the medium making stuff up. So, just be careful of that. So what is the difference between being a medium and a psychic? A medium receives communication from a discarnate entity, while a psychic will read energy around animate and inanimate objects or people. That's part of being clairsentient, right? There's a lot of overlap. You can't say, oh, I'm just clairsentient and not pull in all this other stuff. If you're clairsentient, you're kind of psychic. So, there's a lot of overlap here. So a psychic will read energy around people, and this means that they will read the energy that permeates all living and non-living objects or people. Have you heard of psychometry? Psychometry is where perhaps someone will bring to the medium a necklace, let's say, that the spirit or their dad used to wear, and the medium will hold that. And then she'll read the energy that's been imbued into this necklace by the spirit, because the spirit wore this all the time. The energy stayed with that inanimate object. There are people who can read rocks, shamans. There are people who can read trees, So there's energy in everything, and it's all readable. So, these abilities, these gifts, are not just for the divinely endowed. This is the only constant of let me start again. Everyone has these abilities within them, and these gifts are not just for the divinely endowed. This is the only constant, but because of religious doctrine, these gifts have been forgotten. Through time, our material lives have taken over from our spiritual selves. Once you awaken and the new awareness has arrived, you cannot go back to sleep. So, I wanted to talk briefly too about women's intuition. You hear that all the time. Why do women have better intuition? Or why do they say women even have intuition? There's a couple reasons, but science says it's because women's brains are optimized for intuitive decision making. The corpus callosum, which is the bridge between the right and left hemisphere, and I've talked about hemisync in my last podcast about balancing the right and left brain so that you can better connect. Our bridge is better developed. So we almost, women, feminine, almost have that naturally. The right side of the brain controls the left side, the feminine side, which is to receive, the gentler, the nurturing. The left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, which is survival, strength, dominance, and that is the taking, input. So, women are naturally like that. So, one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Wayne Dyer here that I want to share. And he says, if prayer is you talking to God, then intuition is God talking to you. So, again, you will develop these you can develop these gifts naturally. Frederick Lenz, he was an American Buddhist teacher. He said, to begin with, naturally, you have to want to and believe that it is possible. I think everyone is equally psychic, but through the practice of meditation, you learn to make your thoughts quiet and become more aware of your innate physical psychic abilities. So if we can bring up that last quote here for me. This is from Dr. Jude Curien, and she was a master in physics, specializing in quantum physics and cosmology. She said, you were born not to just exist, but to evolve. It's part of why we're here. It's part of what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to learn these things to reconnect with spirit. So as you all know, I always sit with Leonini and I want to get to this message. So thank you very much for the picture, Chris. So she always shows me an image first, and she showed me an image of a bobby pin. And I went, okay, how is that going to tie into today's podcast? And here's what she did. The lowly bobby pin is nothing more than bent wire. Yet this ingenious little device has many uses. It can hold on a hat or a scarf, hold your hair up or back, and help to produce curls. It can even be used as a bookmark, a paper clip, and sometimes it can be used to open locks. Who would have thought that such a simple design could be so efficient and have so many uses? Your connection to spirit is also a simple, uncomplicated design, which has many uses. Once you learn and experiment with this simple tool of connection, you will discover how valuable this uncomplicated process is to you. Your abilities and ability to reach us was never meant to be complicated. Keep it simple by bending your will upward. That's all it takes. You will discover that your spiritual bobby pin has many uses and can unlock many doors. I thought that was hilarious. So let me pull a card real quick. I know I've got about a minute and a half here, and I'm using my Sacred Traveler, since I've been talking about our journey and what we're meant to discover along the path. So I will draw one with the intention that it's for the highest good and from the highest good, and that it has significance to all who are listening. So I hope my podcast explained some things maybe you didn't think about or hear about or learn about, and opened a few doors of possibility for you. Go experiment, go discover. It's an amazing journey. It really is. So the card that I'm going to turn over, very, very appropriate. It says miracles. Expect the wondrous to emerge. Perfect. So when you tap into these, you will tap into a world of wonder. So I want to thank you again for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take care. I'll see you next time.